Wrist cock and forearm rotation are two of the most important ingredients in the golf swing. They're going to produce speed, they're going to produce consistency, and they're absolutely, with the correct grip, going to give you the accuracy we're all looking for when we're out on the golf course. Now, they are seen as two ingredients that one of them, forearm rotation, is seen as a negative. You don't want forearm rotation. Well, let me tell you, folks, if you don't have forearm rotation, you are going to be seriously lacking when it comes to the power department. Let's isolate them individually, and then let's talk about the integration. First of all, what is wrist cock? Now, in its purest form, if I set myself up to the golf ball and I don't move the butt end of the golf club, and I simply lift the club head up in the most pure form, that, my friends, is wrist cock. Now, when you look at wrist cock in this manner, is that creating any speed of the club head? No, it's working just straight up and down, isn't it? So this, in isolation, absolutely creates no speed in the golf swing. It can also create inaccuracies. It can cause the golf ball to go to the right, and it can cause the golf ball to go to the left. I'll come on to that in a moment. The second ingredient is forearm rotation. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm now going to leave the golf club on the floor, and I'm going to create forearm rotation. This we know is the wrist cock. This is forearm rotation. Now, out of the two that I've just isolated, which one is going to create more speed and energy in the golf swing? The second, is it not? The golf club was moving on the plane that all golfers see as the club moving around the body. But not only that, when I put myself into posture, and let me just move that golf ball out of the way there, and I just simply keep my posture and create forearm rotation, it's making the golf club arc. What I'm not doing is changing my wrist angles. This is an important ingredient that is very different to forearm rotation. So I can create forearm rotation, and I can also create changing of my wrist angles, which either opens or closes the club face. I could then create wrist set, and then some rotation, and then some arm lift. All of a sudden, you're seeing the components in a golf swing that make up the move, what you see as a great golf swing. So let's now talk about the integration of wrist cock and forearm rotation. So I now wrist cock the golf club, and I create forearm rotation. Now what I'm going to do is unload the wrist cock and the forearm rotation. So there's the wrist cock, there's the forearm rotation. And to now hit that golf ball, I would unload it, which is there's the wrist cock, and there's the forearm rotation. So the two together will create a golf shot. Will create a club down at strike to move from the right side of the body to the left side of the body without any arm lift. Arm lift is a completely separate ingredient, which makes wrist cock and forearm rotation look more powerful. So now I'm going to encourage wrist cock. There's wrist cock. There's forearm rotation. There's arm lift. There's body rotation. Now all of a sudden I move the golf club. There's the movement of the golf club, which is actually arm dropping, because as I move my body and I drop my arms, now I unload the club, create forearm rotation. All of a sudden, I've got myself a golf shot. Now, forearm rotation and wrist cock together will give you the very best possible chance of putting yourself in a decent postural finish that I talk about at great length in these two videos here. Because when you start to recognize that without forearm rotation and wrist cock working together in harmony, you won't be able to create a much better postural position down through strike. So when we think about the wrist cock and forearm rotation, wrist cock, forearm rotation, if my grip does not return as close as possible to being where the wrist cock was derived from, as soon as that forearm rotation returns back to a different spot, you can see how the club would arrive further away, and therefore you would then have to encourage more unload of the golf club to fill the gap that you've created from setup and impact. And so you then get a wrist cock that goes from starting in this point and setting up to a grip lifting up and a wrist cock unloading more, which changes your posture and changes the way you move through strike. So without this consistent thought of pressure on the grip that I talk about once again in these two videos, if we haven't got pressure on the grip moving back underneath the golfer, it won't facilitate the maximum amount of forearm rotation left open to you. Because when you bring the golf club back much higher, you actually exert more force downwards, which actually, when you start to change that wrist angle, it really compromises how much forearm rotation you can have when this club shaft and forearms has this angle compared to when you have an angle that's dead straight with your arms and club shaft, which is what most golfers feel because they're not utilizing a great grip, find that here, good body rotation, find that here, and they're not using the pitch of the swing in the right manner, find more on that there. So this isolation of wrist cock and forearm rotation really gives you a clear respect to how wrist cock, forearm rotation works in a swing to give you the chance to get you into your impact condition, your posture position. So this is quite simply a fantastic drill in you respecting where the wrist set comes from, where the forearm rotation comes from, and how it allows you to then unload the wrist cock and the forearm rotation back down at strike. It's not an easy drill to do that. That was a bit of a top. Let me do that again. So there's the wrist cock, there's the forearm rotation, and there's the golf club unloading back down at the ball. When we encourage arm lift, this arm lift now creates the force in a golf swing that pushes the grip back down underneath us, that gives us the opportunity to utilize the unload of the cocking of the wrists and the forearm rotation together, which enables you to get that club swinging from the inside and squaring the face up. If you think about what tucking the arm and swinging inside out creates, it's actually, so there's the wrist cock, there's the forearm rotation. What it's actually doing is making your grip go further away from you, which opens the face, and then causes you to hyperextend your levers down, which I then square it back up. Look how out of position that is. It's just absolute garbage, and anyone that's still doing that wants to seek help. So this drill, where you lift the club up, making sure that that grip stays underneath you, create forearm rotation, and if you can, just hit some shots from there, where you feel how the club stays underneath you. Then, one step on, set it, forearm rotation. Now lift the grip up. Now you can feel some grip working towards you and then some unload of the golf club. It's not an easy drill to do. Let me just do that again. Wrist cock, forearm rotation, lift the grip up, move the grip back down and swing the club head. And you'll start to sense how that grip moving towards you and the club swinging, look how it makes the path from the inside and look how it makes the face square, close to your path. So wrist set, forearm rotation, arm lift, some body rotation. Now unload all of those levers back to the ball and you've got yourself a really clean and clear understanding of how to hit down on the golf ball, hit from the inside and create a good face to path. If you want to find out a little bit more about how to hit fades and draws, this is not a hook, draw, bias golf channel. This is about understanding how we manage the face to path. You can find out a little bit more about those fades and draws there. Thank you so much for watching. Hope that made a lot of sense to you.
Are you tired of paying too much for your premium leather golf gloves? Head over to gxgolfgloves.com. These are gloves tried and trusted by elite amateurs and tour players alike. Enter my code GOODCOACHING to receive 10% off your next order. Go try them out, you won't be disappointed.
Any questions, drop a comment in the box below. And that, my friends, is good coaching.